Cliff, welcome to Millionaire University. So excited to have you here today. You are quite successful. You've dabbled, and I don't want to even say dabbled, you've succeeded in some really cool ways as an entrepreneur. And I love bringing on people who I was just saying, like the power of the pivot, being able to shift and level up after you've succeeded in a certain arena. So just give our listeners a little insight into what your journey has been like as an entrepreneur, as a business owner that's brought you to right here, sitting in front of me today.
Wow, let me give you the shortest version of it I think I possibly can. I'm a long-winded and I like to tell lots of stories. So let me give you a brief overview. I worked in a family-run insurance agency that was started by my grandfather in 1937. My mom and dad owned it at the time, and I worked for 12 years in the family business, and I was next in line to take it over. However, my greatest calling and passion in the world was being of service to others. And I thought one day I might leave the family business to become a full-time pastor. That's kind of what I was thinking. But as time went on, I recognized that insurance was the most aligned service to others and also allowed me to create the income that allowed me to be the provider for my family. So I gave up that dream of one day becoming a pastor to say my service is to these people in this community at this level, and it's incredibly profitable. Let's go and just stick with this. And I was going to take over the family business. In December 2005, I started a podcast as a hobby with my wife around the television show Lost. Now, we were one of the first few hundred podcasters in the world. And as a result of that, there were not a lot of podcasts, and there were hundreds of thousands, close to 1 million early tech adopters who were interested in such content. And because of that, we had 27,000 subscribers to our podcast by our third episode.
Wow.
We then quickly saw that grow to over 60,000 subscribers. We launched a couple of other podcasts about other television shows. And next thing you know, we've got hundreds of thousands of subscribers from all over the world. They began asking lots of questions related to some of the miscellaneous little tidbits of our life that we would drop in there. We created a podcast called Family from the Heart. I then created a podcast called Business Tech Weekly. Long story, not made too short. I've since produced 55 podcast shows, over 4,800 podcast episodes. After a year and a half, I left the family business to pursue podcasting full time. This is where, I'm like, okay, I'm leaving my safe, secure, guaranteed income as the owner of an insurance agency when my mom and dad retire to go into this complete unknown. I have no experience in actually owning a business. However, I was making about $3,000 to $5,000 a month just in my free time from advertising and people paying me to teach them how to podcast. So I went out and I started that. My first year in business, I made only $11,000 personal take-home net income. Business made much more than that, but it paid for overhead and all the other stuff. But I celebrated the year of profitability in my first year of business with a 2-week stay in the hospital where I almost died. And the reason why is because I worked 7 days a week, every week for 9 months without a single day off, working 12 to 14 hours a day. And then the final 3 months, I began to take Sundays off, but only by convincing myself I would work more the other 6 days of the week.
Oh my gosh.
I had incredibly limited mindset beliefs that were holding me back. I had absolutely no understanding of emotional intelligence. And I lived a life of fear, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I was throwing everything against the wall, trying to figure out how I can continue to put food on the table for our family, having pursued this desire to put this message out into the world to be entertaining, educational, encouraging, and inspirational. Well, we're going to talk about what radically shifted for me, but there were 2 main things. One was a personal and professional development journey when I realized after I got out of the hospital, things need to change. And the biggest thing that changed that came out of that is I read this book, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I was reading it at the same time as one of my clients, Pat Flynn, at the time. And we were each discussing the mastermind principle. And in October 2010, we launched our own mastermind group, which we've been meeting every week since then. There are now
Wow.
6 of us in the group, and the other 4 guys have been meeting every week with us for the last 12 years. Pat and I, 15 years, the other guys, 12 years. And what I can tell you is that I have gone further, faster than I would have ever dreamed imaginable. And when Napoleon Hill says that you can achieve more in 1 year than you could in a lifetime of your own effort, I've experienced that year after year after year in a mastermind group. So what I will share with you is that as a result of getting involved in that group, the momentum and the change in the trajectory, I have sold millions of dollars in online courses, coaching, paid workshops, in-person workshops, annual conferences, physical products, all of those things. I've personally been responsible for helping more than 40,000 people launch a podcast. And in 2017, I realized the greatest need people had was not how do I launch a podcast, but how do I overcome my imposter syndrome, my fear of people, how will people perceive me? What is the next right decision for me on my entrepreneurial path? And so since 2017, I've been helping people with business mindset and strategy.
My gosh. Okay. I'm just going to take a minute because I'm like, I can feel myself tearing up a little bit. The last 3 things you just said sum up exactly where I'm at in my life right now. And I'm blown away by, and I know this is not going to appeal to our listeners and we might cut this out, but I just need you to know where I'm sitting. This is one of those moments where you're like synchronicity and this is going to be amazing. And you're exactly the person I need to talk to today. So I love that. And we're going to be speaking the same language. And I'm truly so excited. And I also feel like I'm sitting here in front of somebody I should probably revere, being such an early adopter of the podcasting world. I know you had to have had a lot to do with the reason that I'm sitting here today. I've had a podcast since 2015, and even that was pretty early. But when you're talking 10 years previous, like you are the pioneer in the world that makes so many people so much money right now. For Pat Flynn to be a student of yours and all of the impact he's had with his podcast, it's just incredible the ripple effect that's been created. And I love that you shared in all of that success, the number one thing that you had to learn was emotional intelligence and understanding the mindset necessary and knowing the next right thing. So I'm just so excited. I'm geeking out a little bit. I'm so excited to hear from you, learn from you, share all of this magic with everyone and the power of the mastermind. I just got invited to another mastermind retreat in a few weeks and I'm sitting here like, oh, is it worth like moving things around in the sacrifice? So you're probably going to have me convinced by the end of this, which I already know the answer is yes, but
the answer is yes, you're going.
oh my gosh. Okay, well, now that we've covered that an appropriate amount of like freaking out over all of your accolades and the amazing things you've done, let's start to break this down. Let's get into the mastermind itself. And for those who haven't read Think and Grow Rich, which guys, if you haven't read it yet, what are you even doing? It's like business 101. It's success 101 if you're listening to this podcast. Go read it. But if they haven't, let's just kind of break down the concept and the magic of a mastermind. If you didn't have anything to add before that, after my fangirling excitement moment.
Well, first of all, thank you for just the excitement of the revelation of just the divine appointment of this conversation. I love that. It never surprises me, but it delights me just as much every single time. I'm thrilled to be here with you. I seriously, just to know that it's like, man, I needed this today. It's like, yes.
Yeah.
So I love that. Let's go into the mastermind. So let me share with you, because there's a story that I want to set everything with. But first, I think we probably would be good to answer the question, what is a mastermind?
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that there are a lot of things in our entrepreneurial space today that are called masterminds that in my mind are incredibly valuable, but probably aren't what Napoleon Hill had in mind, and certainly not what I have in mind when I think about the true power of the mastermind principle. But let me explain to you first the mastermind principle. The principle that's involved in the power is the idea that, Kirsten, you have your experiences of life, the things that you've read, the things you've studied, the things you've witnessed, and you've come to certain conclusions about your perception of what's possible, what's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong, what's even, what options are even available to me. And the reality is that some of the limits that you would place on your own perception of what are the options in front of me, because of where I live, and I read different books, and I was around different people, and I've witnessed different experiences. some of the things you might say and express as a limitation, it's like, that just does not compute. Of course you could go do this. So how this might happen would be in a conversation. You might say, okay, so I'm trying to go and do XYZ, this goal that I want to achieve. And I'm trying to discern, it's like, obviously there are two options in front of me. One option is to do this, and the other option is to do this. And I just can't even begin to imagine which of these two options are the right option.
Mhm.
And so one other person who would hear that and say, well, what about option C and D and E and F? And you're like, huh? That's possible? And this is the beauty of the mastermind. So then let's just say I say something and I'm like, okay, and you could do this and you could do this. And then all of a sudden, something unlocks from some other experience, some other compartment of your brain and your subconscious mind. And you dig out something that was triggered. It was always dormant. The answer was always inside of you. But there was something that I said from my perspective, something I felt inspired to share, that unlocked that door in your subconscious mind to the answer that was already within you. And so this is what happens whenever two or more are gathered together in a spirit of perfect harmony. There is some sort of spiritual layer of what happens. There is a mastermind, a third mind that gets involved. Now, coming from a Christian background, there's this one scripture where Jesus said, wherever two or more are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst, and they could ask for anything and it will be granted to them.
Mhm.
There's some indication that that's the mastermind principle in action. And of course, there's all sorts of non-Christian traditions that speak to this concept, this principle as well. So the idea is that you could actually have the mastermind principle in action in any conversation with a friend, any conversation with a coach, any conversation with a mentor, any conversation with a complete stranger, as long as you're open to talking about things that are meaningful and you are working together in a spirit of harmony. The two of you will come up with things that you could never individually come up on your own. So that's the principle. Now, what is a mastermind group? Now, this is where the definition gets fuzzy out there in this entrepreneurial space. I'm going to give you Cliff's definition of a mastermind group. It is a relatively small group of people, two or more, probably tapping out around 10 or 12. In my mind, that's a great number. It is a small group of people who agree to meet together regularly in a spirit of perfect harmony, where every person in the group is committed to the success of every other person in the group. That's it. Now, I just heard you say, I've been invited to another mastermind kind of getaway or a retreat.
Mhm.
So there are certainly mastermind getaways and retreats that might be a one-day mastermind that might bump up against this definition that I just gave, because I said a small group of people, relatively small group of people who meet together consistently or regularly. In my idea, it's the perfect definition of what I most have found value with.
Mhm.
Now, with that being said, I've been a part of mastermind groups that have only ever met once. All right. And it's more like a mastermind day or a mastermind event rather than it is actually a group, because if it's a one-time, one-day mastermind or a one-weekend thing, it's not necessarily an actual group,
Mhm.
but it is a mastermind, and those are incredibly valuable. And when we get into a little bit more discussion about hot seats, we can talk about, how big those could potentially get. But when we get into how frequently should a group meet, I think probably once a quarter is the least that I would recommend a group of people get together. Once a month is, I think, potentially better, depending on the group of people and their schedules and what your guys are working on. And I personally, in all of Masterminds groups that I run on a consistent basis, they're weekly, every
Mhm.
week, once a week, without fail. And I have my Green Room Mastermind with Pat Flynn and Michael Stelzner and some other really cool, amazing people. And like I said, Pat and I go back 15 years. The other guys, we've been together 12 years. We meet once a week, every week for 1 hour. Quick little note, it is a non-paid mastermind group. Nobody in this group that I'm talking about here actually pays anything. I do lead and facilitate the group every week, but really I'm just the person who makes sure we starts on time, ends on time, and I let people know who's in the hot seat. Then I actually have 2 different mastermind groups that are paid mastermind groups, and these people pay $15,000 paid in full for 1 year in the mastermind group, and we meet together for 90 minutes every week. And by the way, all of my groups meet via Zoom these days. Okay? And in my next level mastermind, the paid mastermind groups, we never meet in person. I've been doing it since November 2017. Not once have we had an official in-person gathering of our mastermind group, with the exception of my annual conference that I did 2 years before the pandemic. We had a mastermind night, but it was actually everyone involved in the green room and both of my paid mastermind groups all in one gathering, and not everybody from all the groups were there. Okay, so that's the mastermind principle. That's what a mastermind group is. And I'd love to tell you about the benefits and the format of the group, but I'd like to start by telling you a story. But before I do you have any comments or questions on all of that?
No, I love that. And I'm grateful that you broke it down, because I think that I've been a part of every single one of those, right? In some capacity or another. I've paid a lot to be in like the group that meets regularly. I've even paid to be in masterminds that I wouldn't even really call a mastermind. It's just kind of like a next level coaching group where there's a lot of people, there's not a lot of intimacy. So I agree with you. I think the most value is in that 12 max amount of people where it's really high touch. You're really getting a lot of opportunity to connect, collaborate. And I love how you even like on the simplest term broke that down, where it's when 2 minds are able to come together. I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, that's how come I'm able to have aha moments going to like a random Saturday event where I'm hearing a woman talk about plants and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is totally applicable to my business. Or in the chair getting my hair done and having a conversation with the hairdresser, and we're both having these, fireworks going off in our brain about what we need to do in our personal lives, our businesses. So I love that. Thank you for breaking that down. I'm excited to hear what you have next, what the story is.
So here's the story. I want to share with you the essence of the value of a mastermind, because I think you and I talked about the title of what would be the topic that you and I would discuss. And I think the title that I threw out to you is how to achieve more in less time through the power of, or how to achieve more with less trial and error through the use of a powerful mastermind group. So I want to give you a story that illustrates it. And I think if people resonate with this story and they're like, man, I wish I had something that could get me those kind of results in life, then they'll be more interested in the boring details of here are the benefits and here are the formats of the meeting. So let me give you some real life math on this. So we're going to fast forward to, I think it was 2011. February 2011, I was invited by the author Dan Miller of the book 48 Days to the Work You Love. He had become one of my clients, and he says, Cliff, I love what you're doing. I've got so many entrepreneurs. They need a podcast, and this is back in my podcast Answer Man days. And he goes, I think you get a lot of work. The thing is Joanne and I are hosting a Valentine's Week cruise. And I would love to invite you and your wife, Stephanie, to come on this cruise, and I'd give you a speaking spot. The only thing is you pay your own way. However, if you get people to come, you could earn a commission on that, and you might be able to cruise for free or whatever. But he goes, Cliff, I think you could probably come away with quite a few clients if you came and spoke on my cruise. Now, this is just at this area where I'm starting to climb out of the low emotional state things. I've had about a year of my personal and professional development journey. I've finally gone away from $50 an hour for one-on-one coaching, and I'm at $300 an hour for one-on-one coaching. So I've made a significant leap forward, by the way, through a lot of interaction in my mastermind group. My pricing journey could be a whole separate story of some really fun conversations that happen inside of mastermind group meetings. But I want to specifically stay on this cruise story. So I'm invited to go on this cruise. I'm incredibly successful as a consultant at this point. I'm making somewhere around probably $180,000, $220,000 a year teaching people how to launch a podcast through one-on-one coaching, $300 an hour. And quite frankly, I am booked about 4 to 6 weeks in advance. I have no room for new clients instantly. You have to be on a waiting list, which is kind of fun and everything, except for the fact now I'm invited to, and by the way, this is really good. You might think, oh, Cliff's swimming. Don't forget about how $11,000 net income in 2008. So
Yeah.
in 2009 wasn't a ton better, but 2010 started to, but we're just basically at the point where it's like, man, I feel like we're catching breath financially. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
We're not swimming in the money yet, but we are starting to feel a lot lighter about financial pressures these days until an invitation to go away on a 7-day cruise comes along. So my wife's a stay-at-home mom. We have 3 young kids, and we have never paid for anybody to be a babysitter or anything like that. And the thought of Stephanie and I going and finding somebody to take care of our kids, my mom and dad still own the insurance agency, so they're not available. Stephanie's side of the family, that's not happening. So we've got to come up with some way, number one, of finding childcare for let's just say realistically, a 10-day trip. And then Stephanie's not feeling all that great about leaving our kids because she's never left our kids.
Mhm.
And then there's the financial side of this. And on top of that, I'm going to be away from my business doing no one-on-one coaching for an entire week, all of that lost income. And like, I'm starting to really get concerned about this. So Stephanie comes to me and says, got an idea. And I'm like, what? She goes, why don't you go on the cruise without me? And I'm like, yeah, that's probably not going to happen. She goes, no, seriously, I'm thinking about this because number one, you and I both know if you go on this cruise, you're going to pick up new clients. It is absolutely going to pay for itself. It's going to be amazing. Number two, I don't want to leave my kids. Number three, how are we going to afford it if we did? You know, and all this other stuff. And so why don't you call up Dan and just let him know that, yes, you're going to be on the cruise, but you're coming by yourself. Now, I'm embarrassed, Kirsten, to tell you this story, but I'm going to tell you because people need to hear it. I call up Dan Miller on the phone. I said, Dan, I want to speak on your cruise. I want to accept your invitation. We're running into an issue with childcare and things related to that. And Stephanie suggested that I should come on the cruise by myself. Would that be something that you're okay with? He says, Cliff, it's not so much about what I'm okay with. It's more about the impact it will have on your brand and how people will perceive you. And let me explain to you what I mean by that. What I mean is that if it weren't a Valentine's week cruise where everybody's bringing their special sweetheart, I don't think it'd be that big of a deal. But given the fact that everybody on the cruise is going to be a couple and you're the only single person there, and just the fact that you're going to know that the reason you couldn't do it is because of, whatever. But he goes, in my mind, you're either better off bringing your wife and coming together or probably just passing on the opportunity. And I said, okay. And so I made this executive decision in the moment. I said, let me ask you this, Dan. What would the perception be if I brought all 3 of my kids with me on this cruise? He goes, well, I think that would probably work in the opposite direction. I think that people would say, oh my gosh, Cliff had this illustrious career as an insurance agent. He started his own full-time business. He's helping people launch a podcast, and things are going so well that he can take an entire week to not only cruise with his wife, but he pulls his kids out of school and brings them along for the adventure. I think that would even do even more to benefit how people would perceive you. And I'm like, wow. I said, so Dan, I'm in. I'm bringing my wife, Stephanie, and she doesn't know it yet, but I'm bringing all 3 of our kids as well.
You can either pay for the childcare or pay for the cruise, right?
That's
It's probably
exactly
about
it.
the same.
Well, you would think it's all about the same, except for the fact that now that I'm bringing the kids, yes, the cost of the cruise for the kids to be with us, about the same as what it would cost for the childcare. But here's the little wrench that was thrown into the cogs, if you will, of this internal engine of our financial system, was the fact that if it was Stephanie and I going on the cruise, the two of us would fly to Florida, to the port.
Yeah.
There's a big difference in price between 2 airline tickets and 5.
Right.
And so we're going to drive to Florida to save money. And of course, to drive to Florida means that instead of a couple of hours to fly there, we're now going to take 2 days to drive there.
Yeah.
That's more time away from paid one-on-one coaching. So I went and did all of the math, and I'm like, okay, from all of the lost revenue from that week that I would be gone, plus the 2 days on both sides, I could probably pick it up and kind of count for weekends. And so maybe it's not going to be that big of a deal. But what's the total cost that I need to come up with to make this something that isn't going to hurt us, like it have a lot of pain associated to the financial investment of this? Also, I want to go on some fun things with the kids, some excursions. I want to make a thing out of this. So the cost was $16,000.
Wow.
I need $16,000. By the way, I need $16,000 within the next 6 weeks.
No big deal.
No big deal.
This is what year? I just want to give context to this.
This was 2011.
Okay, so this is like before people are putting out digital offers as much. Like this is before social media is what it is. This is before people are like running social media ads. I just wanted to give that context to people. I could tell you right now how to solve that overnight, right? But like 2011, different landscape.
Exactly. So there were people doing all the things that you just mentioned, but it was the early adopters who were doing that. And not to mention the fact that it was incredibly challenging, difficult, and expensive for all of those things back in the day as well.
Yeah.
So here's what I want to share with you. I went to my mastermind group meeting, which of course we meet every week. And here's where I'm going to dip into some of the details. So the way our green room mastermind works, and also my paid mastermind groups, the next level mastermind, how they work is we meet every single week, and every week one person is in the hot seat. Now, the meetings that I facilitate always start the first 10, 15, maybe even 20 minutes of a meeting is devoted to what we call wins of the week. Everybody talks about something that is going right, something that you're grateful for, something that you want to praise. And it doesn't all have to be business related. It could be personal. It could be anything. Like this morning, we talked about the fact that my wife and I have been enjoying going out for morning walks lately instead of going to the gym together. Something like that. So we start with wins of the week, and then one person is in the hot seat. So let's just say the green room mastermind, because that's where this story is. We've had about 10 minutes of wins of the week. All 6 of us have shared our wins. And now I'm in the hot seat for 50 minutes. That's 50 minutes where everyone else in the group is now fully devoted on serving me. All right. So I go to the group and I share everything that I just shared with you. The whole backstory of how I was invited to this thing, how I'm now committed to going, and I need $16,000. Basically, everything I just shared, I did that. And then I'm like, okay, guys, give me some ideas of how I can make this happen. And here is the first thing that came out. My friend Pat Flynn says, hey, Cliff, you know how about 3 months ago, I had a hot seat and I told you guys I was going to do a 4-week group training course on how to do niche websites? So you could actually create a niche blog and set up affiliate things and all this. And we were going to teach people how to do this in a 4-week group coaching program. I'm like, yeah, I remember that. He goes, well, do you remember the format? And I'm like, well, yeah, I do remember, but remind me. And he says, well, here's the situation. It was going to be $800 per student. We were going to limit it to 20 students because we wanted to make sure we could serve everyone and make sure all their answers are getting all their questions are getting answered. And so here's the format that we chose. 4 weeks of a cohort group going through this course together. There are going to be assigned video tutorials that we would create and give them as assignments to go and watch. We're going to give everyone access to a discussion forum. This is before we had all these community groups and Facebook groups and stuff. We're going to give everybody access to a discussion forum where they can ask an unlimited number of questions for 4 weeks. And every question they ask in the discussion forum, we promise to answer. We'll do it Monday through Friday, normal business hours, but they can ask 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then at the end of each of the 4 weeks on Friday, we will host anywhere between a 1 to 2 hour Ask Me Anything session. That and by the end of the 4 weeks, they will have successfully launched their niche blog and has their first offers that have the potential to start generating income. And I'm like, yeah, I do remember all of that. And I sit there, I said, when are you guys going to launch that? He goes, well, here's the thing. Something happened with the person I was partnering with. He had something going on in his personal life. And we both decided it would be in our best interest to just kind of, just kind of dissolve the idea. So we're not doing anything with it. And I'm like, okay. He goes, but the reason why I bring it up, Cliff, is because you already have a lot of digital training tutorials, video tutorials that people are buying one-off. I bought a couple of them myself before I hired you one-on-one. So you already have some tutorials. You're the one who gave me the suggestion of what forum software to use. You're also, you were there when we talked about the different options for the group coaching calls. And here's the situation. I already hired a designer to customize the weekly syllabus, the PDF document that I would send to them. It's got my logo. It's got all of the things. It's already been designed. I already paid for it. You could do this, Cliff. You could create a podcasting course and you just assign all of your tutorials that you already have, and the ones that you don't have, you can make those up as you go along, or as over the next 6 weeks, you could start making sure that at least you have week 1 materials before week 1 comes around. I'm going to give you all of my professionally designed templates for my course that I'm not going to do. Simply pull my logo out, put yours in. Take out my assignments, put your assignments in. It's all yours.
Wow.
By the way, the forum software that you said, you know it already. Here's the thing. Go and sell this. I walked away from that 1 hour meeting, that 50-minute hot seat, with the clear plan of exactly how to come up with $16,000. So I immediately started creating a sales page. I immediately started talking about it in my email list. I immediately started talking about it in my podcast. I started talking about it in social media. And one right after another, people were signing up. $800, $800, $800. We left to drive to for our cruise. And at that point, I think we had like 6 or 7 people had signed up. But as my wife is driving to Florida, I'm sitting on a laptop, sitting there answering questions, making phone calls, selling spots along the way. 7 couples on the cruise signed up at $800 a piece on the cruise. And on the Monday after I got back home from the cruise was the launch day. And 1 hour before the session went live, the first thing kicked off, 1 hour before, the 20th person deposited $800. I had my $16,000.
Oh my gosh. The minute you said the price point and the amount of people, I was like, that's exactly what you needed. This is why mystery novels are not always fun for me, because I figured it out a little too soon, but
Yep.
not anybody could have picked up on that. That's incredible.
Well, here's the fun story. All right. So I'm going to go into my spreadsheets. And after the first session, I did it again. And so after the first session, I did it again at $800. And the success was just as great. And it's like, this is amazing. I could continue to do this. I stopped doing one-on-one podcast consulting. I steered everyone into this course, including Amy Porterfield. Amy Porterfield and I were speaking on Michael Hyatt's stage together. She goes, Cliff, you convinced me with your talk. I'm going to launch a podcast. I want to hire you as my consultant. I said, Amy, I'd love to help you. The only thing is you're going to have to go through my course because I don't do one-on-one. It's hilarious. So Amy's one of my students. But here's the fun thing. I am looking right now. I have, by the third one, I changed the price. Actually, a guy named Jason Van Orden and I were talking at a conference. And this is the mastermind principle in action. So he says, Cliff, so tell me what's been going on. And I told him this entire story. He goes, Cliff, that's amazing. He goes, do you have a VIP option? And I'm like, what's a VIP option? He goes, well, you should have a $2,000 option for people who are willing to pay more. There's just this group of people when they see the option for 5 or for 800 or 2,000 for the VIP, just to give them one or two extra things. There are people that will just choose the more expensive thing. He goes,
Mm.
and I'm like, I had a bunch of questions. I had a little bit of reservation, and he answered all of those. And I came back home and I created the VIP option, except for I just said the course is $2,000. It's not 800 anymore. And
Wow.
I figured I'd try that. And sure enough, I sold all 20 spots at 2,000. By the way, 32 sessions of podcasting A to Z from that time until my final one on October 2017, before I made the transition away from my podcasting business.
Wow.
Over $1 million in revenue from that. And I sold over $1.7 million worth of podcast equipment to all of those students.
My goodness. That's incredible. And I love it. It brings back this like concept I learned from another guest on here. You have this like positive constraint. You have this thing that you want to do and you figure out the solution within those parameters instead of this big, huge concept of like maybe without that restraint or that constraint that you had with wanting to go on the cruise, you wouldn't have run into the problem, which wouldn't have then led to the solution. So there's so much power in that. And in being willing to not just say, oh, I can't, that's not an option, to saying, well, if I have to, like if this is a non-negotiable, then what needs to happen for this to happen? So, and I love that it wasn't just like, you know what, we'll just trust the process. And if we go, then we'll
Yep.
just hope that there's something that comes of it. There's still some intention with preparing. And all of that came from being in this mastermind, like having other people you could bounce this off of and have that idea. So I know you mentioned as you started the story, like everybody's going to say, well, I wish I had that. Like I want that kind of a situation where Pat Flynn can just give me his entire deck and let me customize it. But so let's talk about what that looks like to really form and where somebody should start. Like, should you be the orchestrator of the mastermind? How do you get involved in masterminds? What should you be looking for? There's so many questions that go into the nuance of this.
Well, I would love to answer those questions. So let's tackle each of those that you just brought up. What was the
Yeah.
first one? Should I be the one who starts
Yeah.
and
Should I
facilitates
start
a
one?
mastermind?
Yep.
The answer is by all means, yes. If you can't find one that's instantly like made known to you, ask around, see if there's any mastermind groups in existence and see if there are any that you can join, whether they're free or paid or whatever. Just do some investigation and see what's out there. And by all means, if you can get into a group right away, then get into a group right away, paid or free. However, if one is not available to you, then by all means, start a mastermind group. The reality is you're already a part of many different mastermind groups. If you are married, you and your spouse are technically meet the full definition of a mastermind group. Well, assuming that you and your spouse work together in a spirit of perfect harmony. But the thing is you are there to serve each other and to really co-create together and benefit each other's lives with all that you have available. Individually, you come together and the two of you have that. If you are a part of if you're a business owner and you have a team of employees, you actually are the leader of a mastermind group where you and all of your staff have agreed to come together to work in a spirit of perfect harmony towards the goals of this business. So, and also where everybody is actually trying to find a way to benefit everyone else that's on this team. This is how we work together. I want you to first and foremost think, if you feel any sort of intimidation about the idea of launching a mastermind group, you've already had an experience with it. So then the question is what is the affinity group? What is the thing we have in common? What is shared among this group of people? So I want to ask you, Kirsty, you said that you're getting ready to go. You were invited to a mastermind kind of getaway.
Mm-hmm.
What do each of those people who are going to be there have in common?
Business owners,
There you
female
go.
business owners.
Even more niche. It's female business owners. So this right here, what I will tell you, is going to be a powerful experience because everyone there is going to speak common language. You all are going to be facing and have experienced a lot of the same struggles, challenges, obstacles. You all kind of have had at some level different versions of some of the same goals: content creation, marketing, sales, pipelines, systems, and writing a book, have a podcast, and thing. The interesting thing, though, is everyone there, this is where it gets really exciting. Everyone there has their own different level of education, their own unique size of education. And we're not just talking about what degrees you have from what university or what certifications you have from what program, although those are extremely valuable. And anybody who's in this group, in this female business owner group, you're going to benefit from all of their college degrees. But you're also going to benefit from every book they've read, every course they attended, every workshop, every coach they've ever invested in, every mastermind group that they've been deeply rooted in. You're going to benefit from every bit of education they've picked up along the way, and you're going to bring all of your education. Everyone there all has their own education, and everybody's bringing all of their education to you when you're in the hot seat.
Yep.
That's amazing. Then all of these female business owners all have their own experiences. They have, everybody there has all tried so many things that didn't work. And they learned valuable things about why they didn't work. Now, some of them have some false perceptions around that, but those edges get worn off and fine-tuned in settings like these, which is a very beautiful thing. But everybody has their own experiences. Some of them have set goals to write a book and get published by an official publisher and have their books on bookstore shelves in Barnes & Noble or at the airport bookstores, and they've achieved it. And they can share with you that experience and what it was like and how they did it and what it took to get there. Everybody has their own areas of expertise, their skills, their talents, their abilities, and they bring all of this. And in many cases, sometimes, like my friend Pat Flynn did, he shared some of his resources. And depending on the group, you may oftentimes benefit from the influence of the other people in the group. And I know I certainly have. I've been in mastermind groups with some incredibly influential people, and I've been incredibly blessed to be in some powerful rooms with people whose email lists are in the hundreds of thousands of subscribers. And then all of a sudden, as a result of meeting with them, either in a quarterly mastermind group or in a weekend retreat mastermind group or in an ongoing mastermind retreat, because of the things that they learned from me, they're out there talking in their books and their podcasts and their webinars. They're dropping my name left and right. And it's just like, this is amazing. So those are some of the benefits. So all of that to say, should you get into a mastermind group, where do you start? Go and find one. And then the next thing is if you can't find one pretty much right out of the gate within the next 30 days, go and create one. And then what I will say is I will answer the other questions that you had. What were some of the other questions?
Oh my gosh. I mean, just what I don't remember what goes into a powerful mastermind. And I think you've even answered that in some of the initial answer you gave with just like, you want to have that common thread. You want to have something that really has the affinity that unites you. I wish I could rewind myself and go back because I know that
That's
they were
okay.
just very technical, but yeah, I mean,
So
just the nuance.
here's some other nuances that I find come up quite frequently. Number one, what happens if I've been in a mastermind group before and Cliff, I didn't feel any of that energy? Yeah, it's like it's a bunch of people that got together and it just people just chat and it kind of fades out. Hardly anybody shows up. Well, you definitely want to make sure that whatever mastermind group you have has some sort of intentionality and purpose behind it. So, for example, I can tell you right now, the female business retreat that you're going to go, this mastermind that you're going to go on, assuming that you go on it, but you're going to go, there is some intentionality about who is coming, how committed are you to coming. We're anticipating that you will be there, and we believe that you're the type of person who says that if you're going to come, you're going to come. Really very few things are going to ever keep you from actually showing up. Now, when it's a weekly group, there are some things that do come up for some people from time to time, but they're usually few and far between if you find the right people. And the thing is you want to get buy-in and commitment. You need people who are committed not to just receiving the value of the group, but being a part of what makes their receiving possible. Here's another question that has come up many years. People are thinking, Cliff, I'm getting ready to give you $15,000 for a mastermind group that you're hosting for a weekly meeting every week. And it sounds to me like right now you've got 9 people in the group. I'd be the 10th person. So I'm really resonating, and I love the idea of what I'm going to get when I'm in the hot seat. But if I'm doing the math right, it's about every 2.5 months before I'm in a hot seat again. So help me figure out what's going on here. And I'm like, by the way, as soon as I start having people who are starting to put things that together, it begins to help me discern, is this person the right fit for the group?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's a little bit of there's a mindset that person has about what this actually is. Now, some people are just genuinely not thinking bigger picture yet, and you can help it. But here's what I will share that's always been true for the people who are a great fit in the mastermind group. And this is, if you have the right affinity, and this is where that affinity really kicks in, why it's a must, that there's something we all share in common. We all have this same kind of objective overall that we share. Here's what it is, and especially I do all business owners myself, entrepreneurial journey people. And what's amazing is that you are going to get a lot of value in your hot seat. Everything that I just told you about the cruise story, I have 10, 15, 20 other stories just like that. However, those have not been the most valuable meetings in my mastermind group experiences.
Interesting.
The most value I've ever had in mastermind group experiences are ones where I am not in the hot seat, where everybody is focused on serving me. And here's what I mean by that. So I personally have never yet written a book. I have 4,800 podcast episodes. You transcribe them and I could fill a library. But I've not yet ever published a book. My friend Pat has published 3 and is getting ready to have his 4th published. Now, the great news is that Pat has self-published. He's published with an author, but yet it's a certain kind of like it's not a full publisher deal, and all of a sudden he went the full publisher route, and now he's working on. It's like I am so privy to everything that has gone into. I currently have never written a book. But I have lots of my coaching clients whose number one aspiration and goal is to publish a book. And I have witnessed his journey week to week to week to week. And I've seen all of it and witnessed it. And also to get the behind the scenes details that most people don't talk about.
Yeah.
The real challenging. I can't tell you stories because we believe in confidentiality in our groups, but I could tell you stories about publishing books with publishers and how that can go. And I do that privately, but I don't share the source of my knowledge, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so I benefit from all of that. But here's the other thing is let's just say when I'm ready to write and publish my first book, if I want to publish a book, I already instantly benefit from everything I've witnessed throughout this entire journey. And I can go and ask that person, hey, based upon everything, just tell me real quickly, what are the top 3 things I need to be focused on right here, right now in my journey? And the reality is to be able to be a part of seeing that person succeed. This is why I can get further faster. I can achieve more with less trial and error, because those people that I've been witnessing in all of their hot seats, they're doing all the trial and error on all sorts of things that they've read about in a book, that they took a course on, that they went to a conference and got detailed, that they hired a coach to help them with. And I've been witnessing, I've not once yet had a desire to create those things.
Yeah.
but I can see a lot of potential where one day I'm like, you know what? The next thing on my bucket list in my business is to go do that thing that so-and-so in the group has been doing, and I benefit from it all.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's a good perspective where even if you're not the focus, there's still like, there's no replacement for the compilation of knowledge that you're going to gain from having so many people's brains, life experiences, everything you said earlier on, brought into one space. I do have a question as kind of a spinoff to that, just for those thinking in terms of ROI, who might be a little more in like the seat of the person you're talking to, or like, let me kind of do the numbers on this. One of the things that I like to look at, and I kind of have this like, I'm on both sides of the coin where I believe there's good outcomes and there are blessings that come from every time you're willing to say yes and show up for something, even if you don't have all the answers figured out. I also, similarly to your story, like I still want to have the plan. I still want to have some kind of an understanding of how this fits into how I'm spending my time, how I'm growing my business. So are there ever masterminds? Have you been part of them, or do you see them where maybe the shared goal is like a collaboration, not just in being able to give each other insight and see things the other don't see, but an opportunity where you maybe share an audience and you're in a mastermind so that you can promote each other, help each other's businesses to grow, things like that that might feel a little bit more technical, or there's like an output goal. Would you still consider that a mastermind, or more of just like a collaboration of some sort?
It's not been my experience. I'm sure I could, if I had a desire to create something like that, I could create a modified version of a mastermind group. What I hear you saying is a joint venture collaboration among a group of people. It's almost like a business networking
Yeah.
kind of relationship, and you could have a mastermind tie-in to that. I had not actually considered that, but yeah, that's definitely a possibility.
Mm.
Yep.
But most of the time, like in especially what you're doing, whether it's paid or free, the biggest win is coming from that very power, the power of masterminding, like bringing all those minds together. I guess my next question too is there a benefit? I know that there's a little more buy-in when there's an actual price attached, but it's just, do you feel like you got really lucky in that sweet spot of the one that you have that's a free mastermind where you guys are all just equally invested, you show up weekly for this many years? Is that harder to come by, or what things would you recommend to
What
facilitate
what
that?
there's definitely I think you even said the phrase skin in the game.
Yeah.
And there's got to be skin in the game. There has to be skin in the game. And you might be saying, but Cliff, you've got this green room mastermind, you and Pat, since October 2010, the other guy since 2012. And you said those people aren't paying to be in the group. And you're right. They are not paying me any money to facilitate that group. But some of you may know who Pat Flynn is. Some of you may have heard the name Michael Stelzner, owner of Social Media Examiner, Social Media Marketing World. And there's some other people in our group. And just what I will just say is, if you knew how much an hour of their time was worth,
Mm.
and the fact that they give 4 of those every month to the participation in this group, they are paying way more money to be in the green room mastermind for 1 hour than anyone who has ever paid me $15,000 to be in a 90-minute weekly call.
Yeah, yeah, that's really good perspective. So just considering that when you're doing a free mastermind, make sure that there's kind of an equal, not buy-in financially, but buy-in with like life experience and I don't even want to say net worth, but it's just kind of like knowledge worth and asset of your experience.
Yeah, it is. You're right. We're dancing around this of what this is, but it is. There must be an equal level of investment of
Hmm.
energy. I think that's the best language that I could use, because that energy could be in multiple different forms.
Yeah.
But there has to be an equal level of investment of energy and excitement, enthusiasm, and dedication to the sacredness of what this group is.
Mm. Yeah. Okay, well, we're running out of time, so I just really want to quickly have you maybe explain to us too, if you're facilitating a paid mastermind, this is a really great business model. Obviously, for you, it's something that you're able to have as kind of a full-time income. You have these amazing people. You have a couple of versions or a couple of groups where you're running the mastermind with.
Mhm.
What if we're wanting to facilitate something like that? What do I need to consider that I need to bring to the table? And then what is the best way to go about bringing the right group of people together?
Yeah. So first, the first question is, what do you need to bring to the table? You need to bring together a clear vision of the purpose of this group, what this group is all about, what this group is going to achieve together. You need to have a clear expectation. You need to set the standards of what's required of a person psychographically, demographically, to be a part of this group. What is the level of commitment that's required? You need to set all of those standards, and you need to hold a high standard for who gets into the group. Because if somebody's going to pay to be in your group, you've got to make sure that their investment of where they're putting their time, effort, and energy being in this group with these people, that they're people that they want to be in the room with. So you're going to want to have high energy people who are caring, generous, that are hope filled, that are solution focused rather than problem focused. You don't want a therapy group, that's for
Mm-hmm.
sure. There's a place for that, but it's not in one of these. So yeah, and then what do you bring to the group? You are the person who makes sure that you communicate to the group when we meet, a reminder who's in the hot seat. You do all of that stuff. But when it comes down to the group itself, the one thing to understand is this is not group coaching. It can be, there can be a little bit of an element to that. But you are not responsible to bring all of the value. If you've got the right people in the room, you literally should not be speaking percentage-wise more than anyone else in the group.
Yeah. So when you have your paid ones, are you just as much a member, even though you're like getting paid? You're paid to facilitate, but you're just as much a member. Are you getting in there and sharing some of your stuff as well and getting hot seat moments for yourself?
So I have from time to time taken hot seats moments for myself. It's not my standard practice in my paid mastermind groups. I have my own weekly group mastermind, and I'm on the hot seat every 6 weeks with my group. So I get my needs met through that. And I want to make sure that everybody who's being in my paid facilitated group, that they get in the hot seat as frequently as possible. So I don't typically take a hot seat. Now, in my paid mastermind groups, if in the event that somebody has some sort of crisis moment that happens last minute and they're not able to make it and they were scheduled for the hot seat, I certainly ask if the next person who was scheduled for next week wants to jump in. Many times they're like, you know what, I wasn't prepared for that or whatever. And I'm like, you know what, I'll jump into a hot seat today. I'll take a hot seat. I'll share with you some things that I'm working on. Let's go.
Yeah.
But it's not my standard practice. The next thing is that I think the other question you asked, I am there every single week. I never miss a meeting. And when I start the meeting, hey, let's get started. I'm the one who basically goes through and says, what's your win of the week? Okay, it's time to start with our hot seat. By the way, you're in the hot seat next week. Okay, now, Tim, you're in the hot seat. How can we be of service to you? And I also facilitate the discussion. If somebody starts to kind of, carry on a little bit too far, I say, hey, pause right there for just a moment. Let's check in. Does anybody else have anything before we continue to go down this route? And so I'm very much the facilitator of the discussion and the dialogue. I am the leader / facilitator of the group. And I'm the one who makes sure to hold that the standards of what I have set for this group are being met in every single meeting, in every minute of the meeting. That's what I'm getting paid to create.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, it sounds like everybody after listening to this needs to go find a mastermind, curate a mastermind. There is nothing that can replace the power of bringing multiple people together in the same cause, the same need, and the same value that you bring to the table. So I appreciate you breaking this down. I think it can be something that might feel nuanced where there are paid versions, there's free versions. So thank you for explaining this through your lens and what's really worked for you. I appreciate it. Where can people connect with you off of this podcast episode?
Well, here's what I would love to do. I would love to invite people to email me. My email address is really simple. It's cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. And if you will just put Mastermind Podcast in the email subject line and say, Cliff, I was listening to this podcast where you talked about the power of mastermind groups, that I can achieve more and with less trial and error. It really resonates with me. I'd like to discover more about mastermind groups. I would love to share with you a special thing. I was going to write a book on mastermind groups, but I actually created a private podcast for people who are interested in learning more. There are 6 episodes of everything I've learned, including how much money I've charged in different formats, one-day business masterminds, paid mastermind groups, so much behind the scenes data. I would love to gift that to you. And all you have to do is email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com.
Cool. I'll be doing that as soon as we hit the stop button. 100%. I love it. Thank you so much. You have been such a delight to talk to. Thank you for sharing everything you have. Again, echoing what I said in the beginning, it's such an honor to talk to you and hear the way that you've really helped to pioneer this space and create opportunities like this for so many of us podcasters who are building amazing companies and brands and sharing beautiful messages. So I appreciate everything you've done and continue to do. It's been so fun getting to know you.
Kirsten, thank you so much. And I never take it lightly to be invited on somebody's podcast. I just want to say thank you so much for all of the time, effort, and energy that you've done to build the community of people who are consuming this piece of content, and the fact that you trusted me enough to invite me to be a guest. I don't take lightly. So thank you so much. It has been a great privilege and an honor.
Wonderful. Thank you again.
Absolutely.